Okay, we're going to record in three, two, one. Okay, with me today is Aaron Warbritton of the Hunting Public. Aaron, what's up, man?
Oh, not much. Just working on editing videos. Got back from the ranch last week and we're down there pig hunting. So we had a bunch of content that we were editing from there. And then Jake's getting married in 2 days. So I'm getting ready to go up to Wisconsin tomorrow for
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome. It's I would say you spend a decent amount of your life, behind a computer, where you're sitting there
Yeah.
going, I should be hunting right now, but I'm editing. Got to get stuff out for the folks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in the Midwest whitetail days, I hunted and scouted a lot more than I do now when I worked for Bill. And at that time, I was actually spending about as much time behind the computer as I was now. I was single and I only hunted local public land, didn't really do a lot of traveling. So I would edit all night. I was also in my 20s. So now, fast forward 7, 8, 10 years later, I'm not as spry as I was 10 years ago when I was in my 20s. And
Yep.
I would just slug coffee and eat frozen pizzas all night and get all my editing done and then hunt all day and just sleep
Yeah.
when, you could. But now things have changed quite a bit.
Now we are very aware of our stomachs I've got a four in front of my age now. So,
Yep.
like my stomach says, dude, what are you doing to me? It's 10 o'clock at night. Why are you putting this in me? And,
Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely understand that. But, well, so anyone that's listens to our show, I would assume that they live under a rock if they don't know who THP is. But just in case, really quickly, give an introduction about the hunting public and then a little bit about your background. I already know it, but why we like having you on the show is because of where you're from. So give a quick introduction and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, sure. The Hunting Public is a brand that we started in 2017. Basically, means the general public that hunts. We found ourselves in a situation where we were creating a lot of hunting video content, and all of us at the Hunting Public are like, man, we're just average dudes that run around. We're either hunting public land or small chunks of private land on permission. And the more that we traveled around the country, the more we realized that is the general public that hunts for the most part. That's the majority of people out there across the country are in the same situation that we are. And that's why we started the Hunting Public. We're like, well, let's just start creating content for people like us that relates to the general public that hunts, that essentially creates value for them. And that's how we started out doing this.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's we started out, I think me and Greg had a few $1,000 saved up between the two of us, bought a video camera and a laptop and worked odd jobs for a long time just to kind of pay our own bills, I mean, because we just the hunting public was just kind of an idea at first, and it was just content that we were essentially making on the side, and didn't know
Right.
where it was going to lead or what was going to happen for really a couple years there. But
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
was
it's
our
really cool
passion, so
too.
that's what we did. That's what
Yeah,
we
and it's
wanted
really
to
cool
do.
to see it also because like from where we are, me, Andy and Micah, which by the way, they're both working today, so they say hi, but um, me, Andy and Micah, we started our podcast 4 years ago, five, whatever it was, 4.5 years ago now. And it's a thing that we have a safety net, the three of us. We all have full-time jobs outside of our podcast. And we're probably going to be that way forever, as long as we do the podcast. Well, when you guys started that, it was like, hey, we're jumping feet first and it's sink or swim. Like you said, you're working odd jobs, doing things to pay your own bills, but not that it's born out of necessity, but you're like, we're gonna do this. And so instead of having that safety net to fall back on, like I do, if the podcast ends tomorrow, it ends tomorrow. I will make it. But you had that extra drive to go, this needs to be what we want it to be. And there's something I guess really respectable when it's this has to work or I'm not going to eat next week. You know what I'm saying? or I gotta go, sell my body for a couple bucks next week or whatever.
Yeah, got to go sell plasma at the clinic for $60 this week or something. Did that in
Right.
college actually. But yeah, when we started out, I was dead set on going back to work for my old boss Marvin Binskin in Mexico, Missouri. I was going to call him up and be like, "Hey, are you needing another service technician to work on washers and dryers?" Because that's the job that I did in college.
Hmm.
Marvin's a great dude, and I really loved working for him and his two sons. So when I left Midwest Whitetail, I was like, when I worked for Marvin, I could still make a living. And Marvin was a big hunter, so he would like let us close the store down during certain times of deer and turkey season. So it's like, I could go back and work for Marvin. I could really enjoy my job, and I would still have time to hunt and fish and produce videos on the side a little bit here and there. And I was seriously thinking about doing that until me and Greg sat down at the table and started talking with Zach a little bit about the hunting public idea. And eventually that came out of it. But yeah, at the time I was in a serious relationship with my girlfriend who is now my wife. And she's got two little boys. She's not looking for somebody that's, flaky and bouncing around that doesn't have any stability. And I went to her. We've been dating for a few months, and I was like, "Hey, hon, I've got a few $1,000 saved up, and I'm going to put it into this idea, and I don't know how this is going to work. I know that for the next 6 months, I've got enough odd jobs planned out that I can pay my bills. But beyond that, I don't know how this is going to work. It's like
Yeah.
I'm 30 years old. I have been making hunting videos since I was 10. And this is like, if there's anything that I'm good at, that's it, because I've spent most of my life doing it. Like I know how to fix a washer and a dryer because of Marvin, and I know how to make hunting videos because that's just what my passion has always been. So we just kind of took the plunge, all of us did. And yeah, Jake and Brody lived on my couch for the first year. Uh, didn't have a place to live. I mean, they stayed there, and they ran
Yep.
around the country making hunting videos with Zach while me and Greg edited videos for other companies to pay the bills, including Midwest Whitetail. Like Bill helped me tremendously when we were starting out because I had just left Midwest Whitetail, and he was like, "Well, I still need some help here and there. So if you want to work as a subcontractor, you can." So I helped him edit some videos on the side, and that helped out tremendously in that first fall because I would have had, no income for a long
Get
period
that
of time.
plasma going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
What you
right.
what your
But
what your girlfriend at the time heard was, I got a few $1,000 and I'm gonna spend it.
yes,
You know?
yeah, and she's
Yeah.
like,
And
"Okay, well, sounds good. I hope you know what you're doing." I'm like, "Well, I know how to make hunting
that's
videos, but I certainly don't
um,
know how to
I
make
try
it a
to relate
business or
that to
anything
what
like that."
yeah. I try to relate it to what we did when we started our podcast, because it was a similar conversation I had with my wife, but I had this thing called a full-time job also. So, I'm like, hey, babe, me and the guys are thinking about doing this. We think we could be pretty good at it. It'll cost us about $2,500 to buy the equipment we want to buy to do it right. If we're going to do it, we want to do it right. That was the thing we said. Because you can record using the mic on your Mac right here, and you can buy cheap, little dangle things that come with your iPhone, and you can do that. But we wanted the quality to be good right off the bat. So, I'm having that conversation with my wife, and I can only imagine if that was the only $3,000 I had, and I had nothing else, outside of some lined up things that you were talking about, to really say, hey, I'll be able to take care of us. Right. And so, it takes a certain set of nuts to be able to take that jump. And I don't think people quite understand, now that we're in the industry, and obviously you're a major part of the hunting industry. I don't think people quite understand. They see people like, you guys and some of the other large folks in the game now. the sacrifice it took to get to where THP is now, or you name it, Drew, anybody that's large, the sacrifice it took, especially at the beginning of all of those people's careers. Michael Waddell wasn't Michael Waddell day one. You know, he had to do things to get there, and there's a lot of extra work that sleepless nights and all those things that go into it. Recording shows at 11:30 at night so we can get one out the next Tuesday or whatever. Um, that I certainly respect. The grind, and I think that's also what endears you guys, especially to a lot of the folks that watch you, is I see myself in the videos that I'm watching THP do because they're guys that are just like the people watching them. At least I feel like that's the vibe I feel when I'm watching your guys' stuff. So you do a great job there, in my opinion, and that's a cool little story to hear. The start of that. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
we started and we had no aspirations of really even making money. I mean, I drew up a business plan with my best friend in the basement of our old house, just putting golf balls across the floor for 3 hours. And I said, dude, I can't type. I can spit out my thoughts in my head, but like you're good at putting everything down on paper in an organized fashion. I said, could you help me do this? He's like, yeah, man, for sure. So I just putted golf balls and talked for 3 hours, and he would ask me questions, and he typed out the business plan for the whole thing. And at the time, I mean, we didn't. When we got to the end of it, he's like, dude, this sounds all great, but you really don't have a way to make money.
where's the
He's,
revenue stream?
yeah, and I was like, I don't really care. We want to make hunting videos for the viewers. The viewers are going to be number one out of everything else. Sponsors aren't going to be number one. Income's not going to be number one. It's going to be the viewers. We're going to make
Right.
content for them that relates to them, that provides value to them. Uh, and I said the chips will fall wherever after that. And we were all good with that. Zach and Greg were totally on board with that. I mean, Jake and Brody were too. That's why they slept on my couch. They were like, "Yeah, I mean, we want to make videos that provide value for regular guys like us." So
Yeah.
we just started doing that and really didn't know where it was going to go. We knew how to make videos, so we were confident in that aspect of it, and we knew how to tell a good story. I mean, Greg had been doing it for a really long time, and I'd been doing it for a while up to that point. So that was well within our circle of competence to be able to do that part of it. But the business side of it, had no idea what we were doing whatsoever. We just knew
Right.
that this was what we were passionate about. I'm assuming that's why you guys started your podcast as well, is because this is what you're passionate about and this is what you want to spend your time doing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
So,
I didn't start a podcast talking about, financial planning because I
sure.
don't want to talk about
Right.
it.
Yep.
you know, but, and then the other thing that I got, now I'm sure there were other people doing this before you guys. I don't know that for a fact or not. But one of the first things I noticed, because when I started, watching the hunting public, we weren't doing a podcast yet. None of that was going on. We were just hunters, right? So I was consuming a lot of hunting content that I could. And one of the first things I noticed about THP, and like I said, others might have been doing it too, but y'all also showed failure. Like when y'all messed up on a deer, couldn't find it, missed, it was in the videos. And, you know, a long time before that, everything I would watch was a kill. It was a trophy kill. Like there it is. And it was nice to be like, oh, well, they fuck up too. Cool.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I missed a deer last week or whatever, and it makes it more real. Like that's what you actually experience as a hunter in the world. If you go through an entire career and don't miss a deer, good for you, right? But that's likely not going to happen for most people. So I think that's another, really cool part about what you guys decided to do is it's all going to be there. Everything that happens is going to be in the videos. And if we have 5 straight deer that we lose, we're gonna take it on the chin because it's reality. It's what sometimes happens. And
Yeah, that's how we make our decisions every day on these videos. We talk about it all the time. Is like, okay, here's a hunt where we messed up, this happened. Is there a valuable lesson in there for the viewer? Is there something that they could learn from? Is there something that we could talk about in there, a mistake that we made that might help them avoid the same thing?
right,
And that question just constantly is circulated about if somebody brings in a hunt and a mistake happened like that, that's the first thing we start analyzing. And if there's a way that we can make it valuable, we're not just going to show wounded an animal for the sake of it. We're gonna show you like, look, this is where we thought we were aiming when we shot, and this is was our mindset before we shot, and this was the outcome of what happened
right.
and what we would do differently if we could go back. It's just kind of an objective look at everything, and I think that's what people resonate with the most.
Well, because everybody does it. Think about every
Yeah,
deer
yeah.
or anything you've shot. What's the first thing you do after you make that shot? You freak the fuck out for a minute, and then you
Yeah, you
call your
second guess
buddies.
everything.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
call your buddies and you start talking about the whole thing. And until you go searching, everyone's talking about, all right, well, you were at 35 yards. Was he quartered away? Was he quartered to? I tucked it right behind his shoulder. I felt like everything was good, or I feel like I hit back. All these questions are going through. And then what happens is then you start going, I would have done this differently. I wish I would have stopped him. I just watched, no, I just watched a video of actually another friend of ours, Greg Gleisinger, who I'm sure you know. He shot a deer a few years ago and he didn't stop. It was right in front of him in a blind, and he didn't stop the deer because he had experiences of not stopping deer. And so he didn't stop this one, and he punches it double lung. It died in 50 yards. But apparently he got a lot of negative feedback because he didn't stop that deer. And but he talked about how he practices that way. He had stopped a deer a few years ago and it didn't like it, so it was so close. It was only 10 yards away, so he decided not to do it, and he felt comfortable and obviously smoked the deer. Well, I shot a deer like 4 days after talking to him about it and all these different things, and that deer was like 3 yards directly underneath my stand, really hard, angle, and I didn't stop it, and I shot it back. I found the deer, all the meat, no coyotes got to it. I found the deer, everything was fine, but I shot probably 8 inches further back because the deer was still moving and I hadn't been practicing that way. So, the lesson learned was if I'm going to do that, I need to figure out a way to practice that way because I shoot at stationary targets. I don't shoot at targets that are moving with my bow. So, just all the things that like you can learn just from listening to people and talking about and watching, obviously watching it on top of that is all the better with THP. But that really isn't what we're going to talk about today. Um, so I texted you a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting at home, and I had just got home from hunting a coyote. We have a depredation tag for a landowner here, and we went out, and my son asked if he could go, and I said, "You can't, buddy. I can only go with Uncle Russell and Uncle Micah here." And I got home that night, and we killed one, and I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm like, when I think about the memories that I make out in the woods, the first ones that come to my mind are the ones with my sons. And it's like they're the best ones. They're not, both my sons now have killed bucks, but they're not the biggest bucks hanging on our walls. But yet those are the ones I think of first. And so I started thinking about, what does it mean to me to be an outdoor dad, not just an outdoorsman now, an outdoor dad, and who in the industry is also dealing with the same things I deal with now as a dad with limited time to get my sons or daughters out in the woods. And honestly, there was only one person I could think of. Now, I'm sure there's other ones, But there's only one person I've watched take his kids on a filmed hunt, and that was Aaron Warbritton on the Hunt in Public. So it just made me kind of think of you to reach out to talk about what it's like, what it is to be an outdoor dad and juggling everything you have to do as a outdoor dad, right? So you've got Aaron Warbritton, who is the dude that has hunted since he was able to crawl, and you've grown up and you've become, this killer of a hunter, and that's the guy you are always, right? Like you hunted how many years before the kids came into your life? You were when did you get married? 30s, something like that.
Yeah, I got married a couple years ago, and I'm 37 now, and I met my wife when I had just turned 30.
So for at least 20 years of your life, you'd been hunting on your own,
Yeah, for the most
doing
part
your
with
own, not
friends,
not by
friends and
yourself,
stuff.
but
Yeah.
yeah, like you really didn't have to think about how am I trying to
No,
say this?
didn't have the family dynamic, the responsibilities at home and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Did not.
All you had to worry
That,
about was clothing yourself and feeding yourself and finding your bow and going out with your buddies, right? They took care of their own stuff and you went hunting with them, whether it was with them or by yourself. There wasn't that extra thing you had to think about, right? It was just, hey, we're going hunting. If I need to bring an extra stand for a buddy, he can have it. He'll put it up. Um, and that's obviously how most of us are our whole lives. I mean, I started hunting. I was going with my brother-in-law and just hunting, right? And then
yep.
I had these little things come into my life, and I missed the boat with my daughter. She wants nothing to do with hunting. I asked her if she'd go with me last year. She goes, "Yes, but if I see a deer, I'm going to yell at it." So I said, "Well, you're not going hunting." um, and like this whole dynamic change. So, like, do you remember the first time you took one of the boys hunting? Like the very first time you decided to take
Oh
one?
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
We're,
It was awesome. And the mindset was completely different. I had to kind of rewire my brain a little bit when it came to taking them hunting or fishing. They both love to fish. I mean, we fished all day yesterday. Um, but the oldest one, Miles, he's the big hunter. Graham is interested in hunting a little bit, but and he'll tell you straight up, he's like, I don't think I'm patient enough to wait. He's like, I want to go shoot a deer, but I don't want to wait for one. I'm like, well, we have to wait because that's part of deer hunting. So he's on the fence about going, but I'm not pushing him into it. And I didn't push Miles into it either. I just was like, this is something that I do because they see me going all the time. I mean, they see the
right.
videos too, and they're like, "Oh, this looks fun or whatever." I'm like, "Well, anytime you guys want to go, you let me know." And I made the decision very early on with them, even when they were too young to even hardly take it in the woods. I mean, I started taking them out, just outdoors fishing first, and then we went on our first hunts. Oh man, it's probably been 4 years ago now. I think close to 4 years ago, and just have gradually worked them up from there. And
Yeah.
like I said before, I had to rewire my whole mindset for them because I mean, through my 20s, it was just hunt nonstop. And through that time, I learned a lot about deer and turkey hunting through all those experiences, but I also it kind of made me this serious sort of intense thinker
Right.
when it comes to hunting. And that was not what I kind of reverted back to my own perception when I was 10 or 11 years old. When my dad was taking me when I was 10 or 11, I remember wanting to go all the time. But thinking back on it, we would only go for like 30 minutes to an hour at a time. And the very first few hunts that I ever went on as a kid with my dad, we didn't even sit. We just walked around and he had his bow in his
Ah,
hand. And
yeah.
we would like see a rub or spook a deer and I'd watch it bound over there. And I one of the most vivid memories I have was when I was like 7 or 8 years old in Missouri, and my dad took me out hunting, and we got out there. It was daylight. The sun had already come up, and we were walking around the woods. And I remember I had on blue jeans because we were walking through a bottom, and all of a sudden a deer got up in front of us and only ran like 20 yards and stopped and turned around. It was a little fork-horn buck. And this is before Missouri had point restriction, anything like that. My
Right.
dad knocked an arrow. He's like, I'm going to try to shoot it. So I didn't know what to do. I remember like seeing the deer and kind of freaking out a little bit because he was looking right at us at like 30 yards. And I just remember like ducking down behind a bush, and dad's like telling me not to move, but I didn't know what to do. I'm like, the deer's looking at me, so I have to hide so the deer
Yeah.
can't see me. So I remember like ducking down behind a bush and putting my head down. And I remember seeing my blue jeans. And that I don't know why that I remember the blue jeans part of it, but I was only 7 or 8. Like I just remember bits and pieces of it. I remember like kneeling down on the ground behind a bush and seeing my blue jeans, and then looking up at my dad, and watching him like shaking with his bow in his hand and trying to draw it back to shoot this deer. And eventually the deer blew and bounded off, and we didn't get it. And then we went to town and got Casey's Donuts, and it was great. Um,
Right.
but in reality, that hunt only lasted about 40 minutes. We got out of the truck, we walked around for a little bit, we spooked some deer, we saw some sign, and then we went and got donuts. And I wanted to go again the next day.
Yeah.
So I
You felt
tried to
like it
kind
was 10 hours, but it was 30
Yeah,
minutes. Yeah.
right, exactly. And I'm really lucky that my dad has never taken anything too seriously when it comes to hunting. So he was going to do that regardless. Like he wasn't a hardcore guy when it came to hunting. He loved going, but he would just kind of go whenever. If you
Yeah.
got out there 30 minutes late, whatever. If you're bored, walk around. If you get something great, if you don't, then, oh, hey, look at this tree over here. This is cool, or whatever. I mean,
Right.
that's kind of the way he was. So he was really perfect for taking a kid like me with
Sure.
a short attention span. And I kind of tried to remember those perspectives when I was a kid and then try to recreate those for the boys.
Yeah.
And that has seemed to work for them. Like our fishing trips are really short. They're only like they want to go fishing so bad, but when we first started going, we would only go for like 30 minutes to an hour.
Sure.
And if they didn't get a bite for like 5 or 10 minutes, it's like, can we go do something else? I'm like, yeah, sure, we can. Let's go right
Yeah.
now. Come on. And then 2 days later, they'd be asking me to go again. I was thinking the first time I took them, we caught like 2 or 3 fish and they loved it, but then they sat for like 20 minutes and didn't get a bite. And then they were like, oh, I'm so bored. I want to go home. So then we went home. I'm like, well, they're never going fishing again. No, it was just
Yeah.
the opposite. It's like a couple days
Yeah.
later, they wanted to go again, except the second time they want to go a little bit longer. And that's been the progression with the hunting stuff too. Start off very, very simple and just, with the mindset of having fun and to keep things moving so that they don't get bored, and then work
Yeah.
up from there.
That's kind of cool to hear. I mean, I had a similar perspective. The first time I took my boys, Caden was he's my oldest boy, so he was first. I put this whole plan together of how I was going to get them into hunting. Like, how am I going to do this? So my plan, whatever genius plan it was they're going to go hunting with me at least for a season before they get to hunt, before they are the hunter.
Yep, we did the same
So,
thing. Yep.
so I don't know where it came from. It just that's what I decided. So Caden, I think, went 2 seasons with me before he got to hunt, and he only went with me when I would sit on the ground. So typically that would be during rifle season because I would maybe do a little, brush sitting. I hate blinds. So at the time, now that has changed because of these boys, but at the time, I never sat in a blind in my life. I didn't like them, wasn't a fan. So, he'd sit on the ground with me and it went great. And then his first year where he was the hunter, I wanted to take him archery hunting. So he obviously wasn't strong enough to pull a bow back. So I bought a crossbow and we practiced that entire year with his crossbow and he got really good at it, and we only practiced out to 30 yards most. I mean, so it wasn't like he was shooting very far. It was at most 30 yards, but he started doing a really good job and he was only, gosh, 9, I think, somewhere in there. So maybe 10. And I made the mistake, and I'm going to get your perspective on this, of saying, okay, he's ready. He's been going for 2 years. and now he's ready. He's shooting good. We're going to hunt like dad does. So the first time I took him hunting, I didn't take my bow with me. I just wanted to make him the hunter. And I had this tree stand set up where I had two hang-ons. One was perpendicular to the other one. So is perpendicular the right word? Yeah. One
Yeah.
was facing north, the other was facing east or whatever. And I had him set up for a double person setup, but not necessarily for a kid because it wasn't the easiest climb in the world. First time we go, I've got him, tied off, and we start to climb, and he gets scared.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Dad, I can't do it." And I said, "Yeah, you can, buddy. I'm right here behind you. I'm not gonna let you fall. You're safe anyway." And I think the first mistake I made was I should have let him get down. I should have just said, "Let's go sit on the ground." But he was brave and he got up in that tree. But we get up there and he had tears in his eyes. And I said, "Oh shit. I hope I didn't ruin everything here." Thank God that night we saw two bucks fight in front of us at like 20 yards, two little guys, and he just had the time. And we saw deer all night long. He didn't ever shoot at anything, but we saw deer all night long. And then the next night we went again, and he was still nervous, but he wanted to get up in that tree. So we did. And that night is when he killed his buck at 20 yards. He made an amazing shot, better shot than dad's ever made. And I just remember thinking to myself, thank God I didn't screw this up. Because as soon as we saw that buck, the first thought I had to myself was, I hope I got him ready. I hope he's ready because the last thing I want is for him to fail the first time. They're going to fail, but I don't know if you had that feeling like, I hope I got the boys ready because if he fails, that's on me. What did I do wrong? Should I had started him with a rifle? Why am I out with using a crossbow right here? What am I doing? All these thoughts started running through my head. Why
Yeah,
in the
it's
hell?
pressure. It's so
Yeah,
much
why in the hell
pressure.
do I have my son out here with a freaking bow and arrow for his first
Yeah.
time killing something? And he did amazing. I was so proud of him. But from the time we saw that deer till the time that deer was shootable, I'm sitting here going, oh God, what did I do? What am I doing? He's getting ready. He's getting he's got a little what do you call that? A little shooting stick that I had for him because he couldn't hold the crossbow. And that deer could only come to one spot for him to shoot it. And it did. It went right to where I needed it to. But man, I was so nervous. So like the first time you took Miles, so you did the whole taking with dad the first few years as well. But what were the amount of nerves the first time you took him? Has he been the hunter yet? The one that is shooting?
Oh yeah, he got his first buck last fall, and then he killed his first turkey and his second turkey this spring.
That's what I thought.
But
So,
for the first couple years, it was the same deal, and it was just okay, bud. You're going to go with me. I'm going to hunt. You're going to watch. And he wanted to do that. He was
mhm.
very apprehensive about guns and nervous about the bow and couldn't pull quite enough weight yet to shoot one with a bow. So he's like, really want to go. I just want to go. And I'm like, you don't care who shoots, you just want to go. I'm like, and he said, yes, I just want to go with you. So we just went. But I can relate to all those emotions that you were going through because, anymore, if we're on a trip somewhere, me and the guys, and we're, 7 miles back and we're trying to kill a buck in the morning and we're getting up at 2 a.m. and hiking through the marsh and all that, I sleep like a baby. Like it doesn't bother me to do that stuff anymore because we've done it for, years now. But every night before I'm getting ready to take the boys hunting or fishing, I can't hardly sleep because my stomach is just in knots because I just don't want to screw anything up. They're young, and these experiences often define, what their perception is of hunting and fishing for many, many years. I mean, as you know, I mean, it all depends. Some kids, if they have a couple bad experiences in anything, not just hunting, if they have a couple bad
Sure.
experiences with anything, they'll give it up. And it's hard for them to get back into it. I mean, I was telling you last week why we couldn't do this podcast last week is because my wife got hit in the head with a golf club accidentally.
Yep.
Well, we were playing in the yard and Graham accidentally swung and hit her, and he does not want to have anything to do with golf now.
Yeah.
He does not want anything
Well,
to do with it.
he's a smart kid
But
because golf is stupid. But
yeah, well, anyway, this goes this kind of, I guess, illustrates my point to a degree. Is he had
yeah.
a very negative experience one of the first times that he did something, and
Yep.
now he's really gun shy of doing it again. And that's what's going through my head anytime I take the boys out, is like, man, how do I make this enjoyable for them and not stressful for them? But one thing I'll comment on here that Nick Andrews and I were talking about the other day at the ranch, because he came from Texas in a lot different hunting scenarios than what we grew up in here in Missouri.
Hmm.
And I won't get into like the full story of the whole deal, but what came out of that conversation is it really depends on the personality of the kid. You
Sure.
know, in your case, was this your oldest son that you were taking?
Yeah, my
That
oldest son, not my oldest child, but my oldest
Right.
son. Yep.
Okay. Well, he got up in there and started getting nervous and was afraid of the heights, but he did it anyway. And then once he realized, I'm just making assumptions here, correct me if I'm wrong.
You
Once
got
he
it. Yep.
realized that he could do it and that it worked and he saw a deer, he wanted to do it again.
Correct.
So like it was an uncomfortable situation for him, but he was brave and he powered through it and then realized that he could do that. So it built a lot of confidence for him to go back the next day and do that. Um, there's some kids that their personality won't react the same way. You know, like I always look at our two, Miles and Graham, because Graham, if he has a bad experience out there, forget it.
It's
He's
over.
not, it's
Yeah.
over. And he's one of those where the first time we go, I'm going to try to set everything up so that we go out there, we see deer as soon or turkeys as soon as possible. It's comfortable for him. You know, I'm
Dad, why is that
gonna,
deer tied to the tree? Don't worry about it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try to set everything up for him as best as possible so that he has a
Right.
great experience. Um, and then see what he thinks beyond that. Miles, on the other hand, he thrives whenever he has challenges. So like when we went out there and we didn't get a turkey the first time, he was like, and a turkey actually came in and spooked. He's like, oh, I'm gonna get the next one, you know, and it
Yeah.
fired him up. He's like, we're gonna do this different next time. And I think we could have went over there where he was gobbling at first and we could have got on him faster. I'm like, yeah, buddy, we'll try that next time then. So, and I noticed that this last fall when we went deer hunting, the first time we went out, and this is all my fault. My dad gave me the wrong dang bullets for the 30-30. So the thing was shooting a foot high. Um, but we sighted the gun in with a 170 grain bullet. I didn't realize this until after Miles missed. Well, sighted the gun in with a 170 grain bullet, and Miles is driving tacks on a cardboard box at 40 yards with an open sight 30-30. And we're confident and feeling good. Well, we go hunting. I grab some bullets out of my dad's truck. We go back there. They ended up being 150 grain bullets, not 170 grain bullets, and they're shooting too high. Well, he shot
Right.
3 times at these does and missed them all high. And I was videoing it all so I could play it back in slow motion and I could kind of see where he was hitting. And
Right.
every one of them, he just shot an inch over their back. And I'm like, buddy, what's going on? He said, I've got it right on him. I don't know. And he's crying and upset, you know. And I'm like, Dad gummit, I'm feeling the same way you were when you're in the tree and your boy's crying. I'm like, man, did I just ruin this? Is he never going to want to go back?
Right.
And he's like, let's go. I'm ready to go home. So we got down and we're walking back to the truck and he's upset. I'm feeling like crap. And he looked up at me and he said, I'm going to shoot every day this week. And
Ooh.
we're gonna get the next one. And like he's wiping tears off his face. I'm like, okay, we'll do that. And then we shot and I figured out, I'm like, buddy, it wasn't even your fault. It
Wasn't
was
you?
my fault and
Yeah.
the old
It was
man's.
me.
Yeah, I put the wrong bullets in the gun. So Then we put the right bullets in the gun and we went hunting the next time. And he's like, "You got the right bullets this time, right?" I'm like, "Yes, we do." And he smoked one,
That's
killed his first
awesome.
buck, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
But that goes back to my point. It's like it just depends on the kid's personality, and they everybody gets something a little different out of hunting. I know a lot of people that hunt just to kind of get away
sure.
from everyday life. They don't get near as serious into it as you or I would.
Right.
That maybe hunting isn't their life like it is for us. Like this is our main hobby and our main pastime. Maybe hunting is just something that they do on the weekends to get away from stress. And they really don't care if they get anything or not. Maybe it's just deer camp with their buddies, and that's really why they go. And they'll go fart around in the woods for a while with a tag in their pocket. If they get one, great. If not, they get to spend their weekend at deer camp with their friends and family. And that's what they get out of it. I don't really care what the boys end up getting out of it. I just want to make sure it's a positive experience
Yeah.
for them. And I've had to shelve a lot of my own, you know, thinking and behaviors as far as hunting goes. I catch myself often with them where we're like in a high pressure situation where we're trying to move on a turkey and he's drumming just out of sight. I'm like, buddy, you got to get the gun up. You can't move. You
Yeah.
got to sit still. You got to do this. And then I got to just a few times I've caught myself, luckily, and I was like, deep breath. Who
Yep.
cares if we even get the thing? Like, if we don't even see him, who cares? Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
It's uh it's difficult. I actually had that happen with my oldest boy again this year. You learn a lot more about them than you thought you knew about them too in the
Yeah.
outdoors. And this year, he's the one who, like I said, he did everything. He was scared when he was younger. He killed his first buck. This year, I'm taking him rifle hunting during the youth season in Missouri, and I'm in a damn blind because I hate blinds, but it's just so much easier with kids. And when you said you have to shelve a lot of what you think, like your thoughts, I did that to him this year, and I caused him to fail. And I'm not kidding you, Aaron. I am an emotional guy overall compared to some men. But that night I got home and I went downstairs by myself and I had a good little cry on what I did to him because he we had this buck. We're sitting in this blind and I look over about 180 yards away and all of a sudden there's this buck bedded in the field and it's a nice like 140-inch type 8-pointer, like a good buck for him. Really good buck. Good buck for anybody. And he's bedded down in the field and the wind's blowing right our way. He has no idea we're there. I have to unzip the side of the blind because I did not expect a deer to come from that direction. So I got to unzip this thing. I'm getting him repositioned. And the buck is kind of bedded to where it's sitting up. Like basically if you picture a deer standing and then cut its legs off.
Mm.
That's it was sitting, up. And I said, "Bud, you can shoot that thing right there if you want." And I said, we can see vitals. You good to go. And he says, "I can do it." Well, we're setting up and he says, "Dad, I'm nervous." And instead of saying, "It's all right, get off the gun. Let's just talk for a second," instead of doing those things, which is what you probably should do for a child, I say, "This isn't a time to be nervous. It's time to kill something. You can be nervous later." Now he's 13 at this time. There's that I'm trying to help him be a man. I'm also, he's still a little boy all at the same time. And so I said, "You can be nervous later. It's time to kill something." That's what I said to him. I said those exact words. So he gets on the gun, he shoots. I think he drills the deer. I see the deer get up. I feel like I saw a leg flop and he goes straight into a creek bottom and takes off. And I'm like, "Dude, you drilled him." So we wait for 30 minutes. We go look and I can't find blood. It's getting dark. Can't find any blood around. So I decided to back out, come back the next morning, and I verified that he did not hit the deer. He must have hit the ground in front of the deer. Somewhere he messed up somewhere. And we get finished looking and I'm like, "Well, bud, you made a clean miss." And I said, "That's a good thing because at least you didn't injure him. We don't have to worry about that deer dying, for no reason." And he starts to cry. And he doesn't do that much. And he starts to cry. So I give him a hug. I'm like, hey, that's not your fault. That was my fault. We should have waited for the deer to get up. You've never practiced when we're looking at deer, what do you call that? The deer anatomy. I've never shown you a
Mhm.
deer sitting down. You've always shot at deer standing up, with your bow, whatever. The targets are never laying down deer. I said I should have never made you shoot at him like that. We should have just waited for him to naturally get up. We had plenty of time. And when you told me you're nervous, I should not have told you to get over it. I said, you did not mess up. I did. And, he was still upset because it was a very good buck. It would have been an awesome deer. But I think by the time we got home, he was like, yeah, Dad, it's okay. I'm glad he didn't, I'm glad I didn't hit him, is what, he said to me. And I said, you're right. That's the best possible outcome we could have asked for outside of, him being dead. But dude, I'm not kidding you. As soon as everybody went to bed that night, I went downstairs and I was pissed. Like I've never been more mad about messing up on a deer in my life that was not even close to the biggest deer I've ever seen. Uh, but as soon, the being mad at yourself paled in comparison to the pride I felt and the way he handled the situation.
Sure.
See what I mean? Like
Yep.
so you do have to put behind what you think and know just to watch them be the little badasses that they're turning into in front of your eyes, right? Like
Yep.
with Miles, like you had to be so pissed at yourself that you didn't happen to check, the bullets,
Oh
like,
yeah. I was like, what is going on? And their deer just kept on coming out like after he shot. So
yeah,
it's like, well, you're going to get another chance, and he's upset from the first shot. I'm like, well, put more bullets in because you're about to get another chance. And like, boom, all three shots didn't happen like boom, boom, boom. The three shots
right.
happened over like a course of 15 minutes on the same herd of does.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, how stupid of a mistake is that? That's just, but his reaction after the fact, I was so proud of him because he just wanted to go and practice.
Yeah.
He was like, I want to make sure the next opportunity I get is better and then I can hit it on the next one. The thing to also remember is the kids, whether you're a parent or just a mentor or whatever, the kids are looking up to you in everything. It doesn't matter if it's basketball, sports, baseball, football, hunting, fishing, they're looking up to you. They most times want to impress you.
Right.
So they'll kind of sometimes they'll put themselves in an uncomfortable position just to appease you or impress you. So I try to take that out of it too if I can and just put the ball in their court. It's like, boys, we can go hunting tomorrow if you want, but we don't have to. It's totally up to you. And or we can go fishing if you want. Or if even better, if they just ask me out of the blue, then I try to be in a position where I can move things around and go. And most of the time I can, but this last trip I was telling you about earlier where we went to ranch ferries
Mm-hmm.
and hog hunted, Miles has been wanting to kill a hog for like the last 2 years. And we get the boys half the time. So 50% of the year he can't
He's
go.
unavailable.
Right, he's
Yeah.
unavailable. So we just happened to have the boys this year on the week that I was going to the ranch to hunt pigs, and I called Troy like a few days before we left and was asking about potentially bringing the boys, and he's like, "Oh yeah, dude." He said, "We'll have a blast. Bring them, bring them, bring them, 100%." He's like, "Then we'll just worry about getting them pigs." He said, "We can do our arrow testing and all our nonsense during the day, and in the evening, and the boys they can chill in the AC so they're not melting outside in 100-degree heat. Then we'll wait for it to get nice in the evening and we'll go out and get them pigs." So I told Miles that might have been a possibility before the trip happened, and he got so excited. And he ended up not being able to go because of mom's work schedule. And his brother is also enrolled in summer school right now, and he couldn't miss a
Mm-hmm.
couple of the days. And it was all thrown together last minute. And I kept telling him, I'm like, there's a slim chance that you guys are going to be able to go on this deal, but maybe. I said, I'm going to try to make it work.
And in their minds, it's we're going hog hunting.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And And right before I left, I was like, buddy, you guys, it's just not going to work. You guys can't go, but I'll plan a trip for later. And he was crushed that he couldn't
Yep.
go. And that's the first time when all the way there, I was like, God, I just felt like trash, you know. I mean, I just felt so bad. And then Bethany's texting me the whole time I'm down there, and she's like, he's checking your location about every hour on the phone because we got that GPS thing on our phone so we
Right.
can see where each other's at.
Yep.
And he's wanting to know like if you guys are seeing pigs and what's going on. It's like, oh man, I would give anything to have him here with us right now instead of me being the one to shoot.
Right.
So most of the time I can move things around, and when he's available to go, we can just drop whatever else is going on and we can go. That's how it was this last turkey season and last deer season because that's been my priority. You know, since they've gotten involved in hunting and fishing, anytime they want to go, and I tell the other guys at THP this all the time. It's like, guys, if I get a chance to take them and they really want to go, I want to be in a position where I can take them, where other stuff isn't going to get in the way.
Yep.
And everybody's like, oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. But that hog hunt, man,
Yep.
that one worked on me pretty good.
It's
I felt
difficult,
freaking
man.
terrible.
I'm running into the same so I don't know how much you know about us, but we're pretty hardcore coyote hunters
Yeah,
also. And I'm running into that with coyotes right now with them. So like the properties that I have to coyote hunt on, they aren't necessarily my permission properties. It's Micah's or Andy's or another buddy that I go coyote hunting with. So when I'm going coyote hunting with them, it's usually with two or three other guys.
yep.
And then I'm like, well, we can't really add a fourth to this, you know? And then I'm like, well, buddy, maybe next time. And I find myself telling them maybe next time all the time on these coyote hunting trips, we'll call them. And I told my wife, I said, I just need to pick a morning where or an evening where it's just one or two little sits and we're likely aren't going to see anything, but coyote sits are quick anyways. So they're not going to get bored. And if we do, we do. But I keep telling them no, and I don't like that because I don't want to tell them no, but I feel like I'm kind of forced to in some of these situations. And actually, we did a coyote tournament. This has been last winter, and I ended up not getting to do the tournament anyways. But initially, I wasn't going to be able to do the tournament, and then I was going to be able to. Well, by that time, Micah, my brother-in-law, had already got a team, and they were already going. So I said, hey guys, don't worry about it. I'll just take Caden and Chase with me. And I'll just take them, hey, if you want to give me a few spots for the day that I can go outside of the ones that I have, great. And then I'll just take them. I'll take my time. We'll go eat, we'll go have a cool little lunch together. We'll go find a cool mom and pop place to eat lunch, and I'll just make a great day of it. Well, ended up still not being able to go after the fact, but I was almost more excited about that day of coyote hunting than anyone that I have been on yet because it was just going to be me and the boys teaching them how to do it. And so I can understand that the juggling of being a hunter and the dad hunter has been the hardest part for me. Like you were just saying, you told the THP guys, anytime, the boys want to go, you want to be able to take them. But then there's still Aaron Warbritton of 21 years old, where he's after 165-inch deer, and in northern Missouri at some public piece, and he knows that today's the day. But then Miles says, "Dad, I want to go hunt today." And then you just
Yeah,
gotta be able to swallow, go,
yeah,
okay, all right, buddy, let's just go sit in this two-man right here and have some fun, you know?
I'm a kind of a priorities driven person, I guess, and those change over time. But like for example, when we started THP, our priority was to make videos for the viewers, pretty much regardless of any of our own individual desires. We set that goal up with that priority, and we're like, okay, I don't care who shoots, I don't care who hunts, but we're all going to work together, either filming, hunting, editing, uploading, whatever. We're all going to work to get scouting. We're all going to work together to try to fulfill that goal. Like, I don't care if you shoot at Ted or if you shoot at Jake or if you shoot at Greg, does not matter. Because at the end of the day, that was our number one priority, was just to make valuable content, valuable hunts for the viewers, regardless of who gets to shoot. So I've shifted that priority now and over my own hunting, like what you're talking about. Like, I've got my own hunting goals, just like I always
Right.
have, but those play second fiddle to what the boys want to do. So consequently, that's how I've set my brain up to look at this situation for the last few years. Is,
Yep.
yeah, I'm still doing my stuff in the background, and if I have time to go, then I go. But as you alluded to, it often doesn't work out because they'll be like, I want to go. I mean, last fall, it was a perfect night for me to get together with the guys and go hunt a property that we'd been waiting to hunt. Just the same scenario that you just played out.
Yep.
And Miles told me the night before, he's like, can we go hunting tomorrow night? And it's like, well, if we go hunting, it's got to be after school, and before Graham's soccer practice. So it's got to be
Yep.
close. I don't have time to drive 2 hours down the road to go to this spot that I've had my heart set on going. Like, if we go hunting, we're just gonna go out on a little place close to home and maybe try to shoot a doe. And he's like, that's fine. That would be great. So, that's what we did.
Yep.
So I missed that night of hunting for myself just to take him out and shoot a doe. And that
Yep.
was that. But that, like I said before, that's how I set my priorities up in my mind ahead of time. So it's an easy decision for me. I've like, okay, you want to go? I'm going to shelve everything else and we're going to do that. And I've noticed that some of our most meaningful hunts haven't been the ones where I mean, obviously the ones where we killed something and then he shoots something. Those are awesome. I'll never ever forget those. But we went turkey hunting last spring in the afternoon. This is the first year we've been able to hunt in the afternoon in Missouri for turkeys on private.
Yep.
We got permission on like 10 acres next to our house. There's a turkey in there every once in a while. It's like not reliable. They don't roost on the place. They come through there every once in a while. There's a few tracks here and there, but anyway, he just had a couple hours to go after school, and he's like, "Can we go hunting?" I'm like, "Buddy, I don't think we're going to see anything or hear anything." He's like, "Well, you never know." I'm like, "Actually,
No,
you're
that is
right. I
true.
don't know. You're right. You've got the right attitude." I said, "Let's go." So we walked around the woods for a little bit, didn't hear nothing, see nothing. We'd been out there for about 15 minutes, and I started owl hooting, and I called in a couple owls, which is something that happens almost every day I'm out there now. It's like we call in owls all the time while we're hooting to try to get a turkey to gobble. And I think it's cool, but I've seen it,
A million
200
times.
times. Yeah,
Yeah.
at this point. So I'm looking at these owls. I'm like, there's a barred owl right there. And Miles was like, where? I'm like, swooping right above your head. And he lands on the limb above us and starts laughing and hooting at us, 10 feet away. And I didn't even pay any attention. I started walking off and I didn't hear any footsteps behind me. And I turned around and he was just sitting there with his mouth hanging open and his eyes about the size of golf balls staring at that owl. And I went back over there and he's like, can you keep calling to it? He's like, it's looking for us. So I kept calling. Another one came in. We ended up
Hmm.
spending 15, 20 minutes just messing with them owls. And he thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was the coolest thing ever that he thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, man, that's really what it's about. It's not to a kid that this is a whole new world for them that you're opening.
Yeah. They haven't
And
experienced, like you just said, like
no,
you've seen owls swoop in like that a million times. So, and being a coyote hunter, we call in owls a lot also, and you'll see them come and almost hit the call before they realize it's not, a mouse. And it's the coolest thing, but Caden and Chase, my sons, haven't got to see that yet.
yep.
And
I bet
gosh,
they'll think that's the coolest thing ever. I bet
oh,
as soon
that
as you
they
kick
forget they'll
that
forget
call
they're
on,
going
they'll
coyote hunting.
probably, yeah,
Yeah,
they'll as soon as you start firing that call up, they'll be like, "What's that? What's that? Well, why are you using that sound?" And then that's how the boys are too. Well, it's
yeah,
like they just start. all these questions just start coming out because it's not something that they've experienced before. So you've got their interest with it. So that's what's been really cool to me is just seeing all the little things that they get excited about out there. And
Yeah.
it takes me back to my childhood whenever my dad was taking me out there for 30, 40-minute hikes. Um, it's like, no, we didn't kill anything most of the time. We just were
We just
common
walked.
around in the woods,
Yeah.
just checking stuff out.
That's the same sort of mind frame I had this year, right? I actually look back at the end of the year and we have the same problem you just talked about, like schedules.
Oh
Caden's got
yeah.
football tonight. Chase has got football tonight. So we can't go hunting because football starts at 5 o'clock and it doesn't get dark, so dad's going to go by himself tonight and then he'll be to your practice after or whatever. But I look back at the year and I was telling my wife, I'm like, I went hunting with the boys almost as many times as I did by myself this year. Now, I probably don't hunt as much as someone like you does that does this for a living, but I hunt a lot compared to maybe a normal person. Not as much as I'd like, but anyway. And I said, I hunted with the boys as much as I did hunt by myself almost this year. Caden, I told you the story about the deer that he missed and how bad that was for me. Now Chase killed an awesome buck out of the same blind. It was a great day. And then I didn't kill a 178-inch deer I was after this year. Micah, one of the other people in my podcast, killed it the first day he went hunting at that property when I'd been there like 17 times trying to get this thing killed. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'm saying like a lot of things didn't go my way this last season. And I had one of the best seasons I've ever had. And I told
Yeah.
my wife it's got to be because I was with the boys so much.
Yeah,
Like there
you
was
don't
no
get these
pressure.
years
I didn't
you
feel the
don't get
pressure
these years
anymore.
back, right? You
Yeah,
don't get these back. They're only young and they're only home for I mean, when you think about it, if they leave the house when they're out of high school, you got them less than 10 years when they can go.
right.
Most
Well, I
of them
was
don't start till they're 8, 9, 10 years old. When I was a kid, you couldn't legally, well,
right.
we couldn't start till we were 11,
Yeah,
when we were little. Now these kids, they can start earlier than that, but still you're only talking about a decade. And then
yeah.
when you throw in all the competitive sports that are going on and all the
Oh gosh.
practices, I mean, we got
Yep,
game tonight. We had practice last night. I'm in the same boat. Like it's nonstop between the
yep,
two of them. Almost every single day there's something. You throw all that in the mix with jobs and work and just the school schedule and everything else. And any time that we have to go, I will move heaven and earth to go
yep.
if they want to.
Well, and think
Um,
about this. How old is Miles? He's the
he's
oldest.
12. Yep.
So him and Caden
Adam's
are
10.
almost Caden's 13.
Yep.
Eventually, here soon, before you and I know it, they're gonna say, Dad, I want to sit by myself,
Hmm.
when they're able to. Can I go to that stand? And they're the time that you actually have them with you hunting is even shorter if you think about that
Oh
because
yeah.
eventually they're going to say, hey, I can do this, I can do it, Dad. I can do it. I don't need your help. I can do it. And that ain't that far away for
No.
Miles and Caden if you think about that.
No, it's
I
not far away at all. I think back to the memories that I had with my dad growing up hunting and fishing, and they're like they're like some of the best memories I had in my whole childhood was going with him and my uncles. But when you think about
Right,
the actual number of times that we went, it's like a couple dozen times, um, that
right.
those memories are
Yeah,
built off of. That essentially my love for hunting now is built off of. That's what laid the groundwork for it, and it wasn't hundreds of times. It was just a few times here and there that we were able to go.
few times.
So I
Yeah,
look back at that, and whenever I realized that, I was like, man, I have got to get out there any time that they want to go. Like yesterday, we went to Bennett Springs and went fishing on the
awesome.
holiday
Yep,
because my wife was off work, but we didn't have time to go down there and get a cabin. We didn't have time to get a campsite, nothing like that. We had to be back for ball practice. So we got up at 5 a.m. and drove down there, 3 hours or whatever, and fished for like 4 or 5 hours and turned around and came all the way home and then went to ball practice last night. And the boys didn't want to leave. Graham was sitting there eating lunch in his waiters, 90-degree heat. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
he said, I know what I want to do when I grow up. I'm like, what? He's like, I want to work up here at this store so that I can fish down here every single day. I was like, all right, buddy. Well, there you go. You do you, man. I'm glad that you like fishing. But
That's awesome.
it was worth it to them, It was like they really enjoyed it. But we had to move a lot of things
We had to
around in
beat
order to
feet.
make that.
Yeah.
Yes, we had to beat
Yeah.
feet in order to make that happen.
Yeah.
So we
I
find
love it.
ourselves in that situation a lot, though, when it comes to hunting and fishing. It's like we just have to
I
make
think
it
that's
happen when we
terrific, man.
can.
Well, it should say a lot that when I thought about doing a show on being a dad in the outdoors, that I thought of you. So, that should make you feel good. Not that my opinion matters at all, but hey, there's at least one dude that thinks about, a dad in the outdoors. He thinks of Aaron. So, um, what before we end we're coming up on time. Before we end this one, what is some advice you would give a dad who is struggling with how to get his children in the outdoors? I know there's dads listening right now that are like, man, I don't know if they're too young. What should I do? What advice would you give them?
Just try to read the room as best you can with your kid. Um, with your kid or any other person that I would say especially with a kid, any kid that you're mentoring, that is, your child, and take them all. uh I There's not really a blueprint that you can read to use that's going to work. Every one of them's got a little bit different personality,
Mm-hmm.
but as long as you listen to them and don't pressure them into doing it, I and you essentially put the ball in their court, then I think that's a good way to start out. And if you've struggled with it and they've had a few bad experiences or whatever, just try to get back to the basics. Get back to the basics of what it is that they want to do. Is there one particular type of hunting that they want to experience more than the other? Maybe they go deer hunting and they're super bored and they don't want to sit in a blind for 3 hours. But then you're like, do you want to try rabbit hunting? And then they kind of eyes light up a little bit. And then you tell them there's a dog involved and you get to walk around in the snow and look for rabbits. And then they're like, yeah, that sounds like fun. Well, then go and try that and try to set up the situation so that it's fun for them and active to keep them engaged. And as soon as they say they're done, pull the parachute and get out. Go do something else. That it'll come. Like I'm telling you, Miles now, he's all in. But this is after several years, of
Sure.
taking him. Like
Yeah.
you said, starting him out, not hunting, just them tagging along and just going on a blood trail track or something for an hour on a deer that we know is dead that we're going to find at the end of the blood trail. It's like just taking
Yep.
them out on that for 30 minutes or whatever. And now he's at the point where, yeah, he knows that if we don't see a deer for 2 hours, if we wait one more hour, we might. So
Yep.
he's willing and able to sit there. But that doesn't happen until he builds his own confidence through time to get to that point. Even though that that's the way it works, you got to remember how you got that confidence. And it didn't just appear out of thin air. It took time to get that.
Yep.
Um, so that I guess that's what I would say. Just read the room with your kids and try to keep it interesting for them and don't pressure them. They got enough pressure as it is right now, especially with all the competitive sports and the in school and stuff.
Crazy,
Like,
man. Yeah.
yeah, use hunting and fishing to be a getaway from that, to be a
Yep.
safe place where they can go and just be themselves and have fun.
I agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. Wouldn't have said it better myself either, man. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about a topic that, I don't know how many people ask you to talk about. And I really, I was just, it's just interesting how it kind of hit me, you know, and I thought I'm gonna reach out to Aaron and see if he would be interested in talking about something that probably don't get asked to talk about a lot. But honestly, if you think about it, it's more important than anything we do as outdoorsmen is getting the next generation excited about being where we're at right now. Because
Yeah,
if they're not here, who is going to be? And we
right.
want this tradition of outdoorsmanship to continue for my grandkids. Our grandkids that aren't here yet, and so the people that are going to be doing that are our sons. So, man, I appreciate you coming on today and talking about an awesome subject, and love watching you take the boys on the trips. And some of my favorite shows, I remember the first one I watched was you took one of the boys in a double ladder stand at your dad's farm, I believe it was. And it's just one of my favorite shows watching of your guys's. And it's not like it was the most exciting show you've ever produced, but it just hits home because when you're a father or mother that are getting kids out in the outdoors, it's just something different about it. And really appreciate you doing that. And keep getting them out there, man.
Thanks. We'll try.
All right. We'll see you, Aaron.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on. Take her
No
easy.
problem. All right. Hold on. I forgot to tell you to not hang up.